I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda. Change for good. And I embrace that and I enjoy that change. I don't fear it. That's the bit that excites me.
For years, Prince William has been preparing for the day he would wear the crown. But few expected that his very first act as king would send shockwaves through the royal circle. As whispers spread across Britain, one family found itself at the center of an emotional storm. Camilla's relatives were reportedly left devastated, struggling to come to terms with a decision no one saw coming. Was this simply duty taking precedence, or had William quietly drawn a line that changed everything? What really happened behind palace walls? And what do you think Prince William's first royal act in the king's capacity was? How did it affect Camilla's family? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. To help us create more videos and uncover the latest royal drama, please subscribe. William's quiet rise to power. Even though King Charles III remains officially on the throne, many royal watchers believe that Prince William has already begun to act like the main driving force of the monarchy behind the scenes. There has been no legal change and no formal transfer of authority, yet observers say the balance of influence inside the royal family seems to be slowly shifting toward him. No laws have been changed, and power has not officially moved. Still, some commentators, including writer Maureen Callahan, suggest that William increasingly appears to be the person shaping the direction of the crown.
And I think that the timing is interesting, and we can get into that. Prince William is looking far more long-term at the viability, reputation, and indeed existence of the monarchy.
In informal discussions, a few even describe him as the real king, not as a formal title, but as a reflection of his growing influence. This perception comes from how William has taken on a more active and visible role in royal duties over recent years. His approach is often described as modern, firm, and willing to face difficult topics that earlier generations of royals tended to avoid. Supporters say this makes him stand out as a future-focused leader who is not afraid to act when needed, especially in protecting the long-term stability and public image of the monarchy. He is also seen as increasingly central to major charity work, public engagements, and even sensitive family matters, making him one of the most visible figures in the institution today. Some royal experts argue that if William eventually becomes king, it may simply formalize a role he has already been performing in practice for some time. Others caution against going too far with such interpretations, reminding the public that King Charles still holds full constitutional authority and remains actively in control. Still, there is a clear sense that William is steadily taking on more responsibility, and many people now view him less as only an heir and more as a future king already shaping his reign. Taken together, these observations have created a growing public impression that the monarchy is already quietly evolving. While everything remains official and unchanged on paper, the reality in practice appears more dynamic. Prince William is often seen leading with confidence, speaking clearly, and representing the institution in a way that feels increasingly central to its future. For many supporters, this is a positive sign of continuity blended with renewal, showing that the crown can adapt to modern expectations without losing traditions. For others, it is simply the natural result of time, experience, and preparation for eventual succession. Either way, the idea that William is already functioning as a king in all but name continues to gain attention, shaping how people talk about the future of the British monarchy and its evolving path under his influence today. How do members of the royal family feel about William's recent activities? What was his first royal act like? Let's delve into the details of the quiet paperwork that sparked a royal earthquake, the silent shift inside Buckingham Palace. On the surface, everything inside Buckingham Palace looked completely normal, almost forgettable. It was the kind of day no one would expect to make headlines. Staff walked quietly through long, decorated corridors. Papers were carried from one office to another. Officials did their usual work without any sign that anything important was happening. To anyone watching from the outside, It was just another calm and ordinary day inside the royal residence. But hidden inside the routine flow of government and palace paperwork was something far more important than it first appeared. Among the many documents, there was a small legal change, an amendment that sounded dull and unimportant. It was written in careful legal language, the kind most people would quickly ignore or never even read. At first glance, it did not seem to carry any special meaning at all. Yet later, royal watchers and commentators began to take a closer look, and when they did, they realized this quiet document may have carried a much deeper message than anyone first understood. It was not loud, it was not announced with ceremony. It did not come with speeches or public attention. Instead, it was hidden in plain sight, inside paperwork that most people would consider routine. Some experts began to suggest that this small change might reflect something bigger, taking shape behind the scenes. They pointed to Prince William's growing role and his long-term thinking about the future of the monarchy. To them, this was not just a legal adjustment. It looked more like a careful signal, one that hinted at how things might be arranged when he eventually becomes king. For many years, the royal family has operated on quiet traditions. Problems were kept behind closed doors. Public unity was protected at all costs, and any disagreements were handled privately, away from the eyes of the world. But now, observers began to ask a new question. Was a shift happening? Was the future king slowly shaping a more focused version of the monarchy, one with clearer boundaries and fewer people at its center? To royal analysts, the message seemed simple but powerful. The monarchy of tomorrow might not look like the one we see today. It could become smaller, more direct, and centered only on those closest to the line of succession. And according to those following every detail, this message was not accidental. It was delivered quietly, but with clear intention. However, the paperwork itself was only the first layer of the story. The real drama, observers say, began afterward, when the consequences of that quiet change started to unfold under shining chandeliers, in grand royal rooms, and before the watchful eyes of television cameras across the world. What was the moment that left royal fans shocked? What exactly transpired, where, and how? Let's dive into the details of the state banquet that had everyone talking. Silence behind the royal shine. November 2024 arrived with all the beauty and polish that people expect from royal life. Buckingham Palace looked stunning as ever, lit up with golden lights and filled with a quiet kind of luxury that few places in the world can match. Chandeliers shone brightly, diamonds sparkled under soft lighting, and important guests from different countries walked in wearing their finest clothes. Smiles were exchanged everywhere, and on the surface, everything appeared calm, graceful, and perfectly in order. But behind all that elegance, royal watchers and commentators believed something deeper was taking shape. For many years, it had been quietly noticed that certain members of Queen Camilla's wider family seemed to have found themselves closer to the heart of royal events. They were often seen in better positions at gatherings, given familiar treatment, and placed in ways that suggested comfort and acceptance within royal circles. Over time, it almost became expected that they would always be near the center of attention during major occasions. However, this particular season felt different. During this period, small but noticeable changes began to appear in how people were seated and arranged during ceremonies and formal events. Nothing was officially announced, yet observers claimed that even the smallest details suddenly carried new meaning. Where someone sat, who greeted whom first, how long a handshake lasted, or even brief eye contact between individuals became topics of intense discussion. The situation quickly moved beyond palace walls and into the public space. Social media platforms lit up with endless analysis. People slowed down videos, replayed moments, and zoomed in on expressions. Some even brought in lip-reading interpretations, trying to guess what might have been said in silent exchanges. On TikTok and other platforms, users debated every second as though they were solving a complex puzzle. Then something even more striking caught attention. Silence. There were no strong public responses, no emotional statements released, no official arguments or clarifications made to address the growing speculation. Instead, everything remained carefully controlled, measured, and quiet. In royal traditions, silence is never empty. It is often seen as a message on its own. And in this case, many observers believed that the lack of reaction spoke louder than any words could have. Rather than open confrontation, there was distance. Not dramatic, not loud, but noticeable enough for people paying close attention to feel that something had shifted beneath the surface. If the royal banquet already made people raise their eyebrows, what followed in the weeks after only deepened curiosity even further. New developments began to emerge, and they brought with them even bigger questions about what was really changing behind the polished doors of palace life. What was the first move that William made, which left Camilla's family in tears? How did his fans react to his move? Let's dig into the details of the leaks, the properties, and the battle over the future. The crown's quiet transformation. Then came a wave of reports about leaked messages and private discussions that quickly changed the mood around the palace. What were once quiet, boring conversations about rules and arrangements suddenly became matters the public could not stop talking about. Words like titles, homes, and royal privileges, things that usually stay behind closed doors, were now being debated everywhere, from newsrooms to social media. Simple questions turned into heated debates. Who should be given official royal protection, and who should not? Who has the right to carry royal titles, and who should live in the comfort of royal residences? And even deeper than that, people began asking a more difficult question. Where does the royal family end and the royal institution begin? Those close to the Queen reportedly believed there was still enough time to protect the interests of her children and grandchildren. They felt that careful planning and steady discussions could keep things balanced for the next generation. But according to many insiders, the speed of change was far greater than anyone expected. Decisions seemed to move quickly, leaving little room for adjustment or delay. Behind the scenes, lawyers were said to be reviewing old rules and long-standing precedents, searching for guidance in past royal decisions. Royal historians joined the conversation, pointing out how similar moments had been handled decades earlier. Meanwhile, commentators and experts debated openly, some calling the changes necessary modernization, and others describing them as deeply personal and unusually strict. To those who supported William, the explanation was straightforward. In their eyes, he was simply doing what was needed to protect the crown. They believed he was focusing on duty rather than emotion, making choices that would secure the future of the monarchy even if they were not popular with everyone involved. But to his critics, the situation looked very different. They saw the same decisions as unusually fast, unusually firm, and even emotionally distant. What supporters called responsibility, critics called coldness. What some described as reform, others saw as a painful separation within the family itself. Still, no matter which side people took, one truth became impossible to ignore. The monarchy was shifting in a major way. Long-standing traditions were being questioned, adjusted, or redefined. Roles that once felt fixed were now open to change. And behind nearly every major decision, there appeared to be one central figure quietly preparing for the future of the throne, shaping the direction of what comes next. Yet to truly understand why these developments stirred such strong emotions across the world, one must look beyond official documents, legal advice, and royal titles. Because beneath all of it lies a deeper story that never fully fades, the lingering shadow of Princess Diana, whose memory continues to influence how every decision is seen, judged, and felt. Was there another instance where William seemed to have challenged Camilla's authority? How did it happen? Let's look into the details of William's intervention in the royal tiara dispute ahead of Peter Phillips's wedding. Tiara protocol sparks royal debate. Recent reports surrounding the wedding of Peter Phillips and Harriet Spurling have sparked quiet public interest over what is being described as a small but noticeable disagreement within royal circles. The discussion is said to focus not on the wedding itself, but on ceremonial traditions, especially decisions about tiara access for the bride on her wedding day. According to these accounts, the main question was whether Harriet Spurling would be permitted to wear a tiara from the royal collection. In royal tradition, tiaras are more than decorations. They symbolize history, rank, and long-standing customs within the family. Because of this, decisions about who may wear them are often treated as matters of importance rather than personal preference. Observers note that while the matter may appear minor, it highlights how deeply traditional protocols still influence modern royal occasions, where symbolism and heritage are carefully considered in every detail. It also reflects how even private celebrations can become shaped by long-standing rules that guide royal life behind the scenes. Such moments often remind the public that tradition and personal choice sometimes meet in delicate balance within the monarchy. Even small decisions can therefore carry wider meaning and public attention across royal life. The report suggests that there was uncertainty over the approval process. One side is said to have supported a more flexible approach, allowing the bride access to a tiara as part of continuing modern royal traditions. Another view reportedly leaned towards stricter control, arguing that such jewelry should only be worn under carefully defined conditions and clear internal approval. What makes the story more widely discussed is the claim that the matter escalated beyond routine planning discussions. It is said that senior members of the royal household became involved, and that Prince William is believed in some accounts to have stepped in to challenge or override a position linked to Queen Camilla regarding how such approvals should be handled. These claims remain unconfirmed, but they have added interest to the wider conversation about how decisions are made within the monarchy today. Observers describe the situation not as a loud conflict, but as a quiet clash, the kind of disagreement that happens through careful discussion, private meetings, and differing interpretations of tradition rather than open confrontation. The focus is less on personal disagreement and more on institutional control. Who has authority, and how consistent those decisions should be from one royal event to another. At the heart of the matter is a long-standing question about royal weddings. Historically, many royal brides have worn tiaras from the royal collection, often symbolizing their entry into the family. However, in modern times, traditions have become less predictable. For second marriages or less formal royal roles, some brides have chosen simpler styles, while others have still worn tiaras. This lack of consistency has left room for debate and differing opinions among those responsible for planning such events. Although no official confirmation has been given about the reported disagreement, the story highlights a broader and ongoing public interest in how the modern royal family balances tradition with change. It also reflects curiosity about how authority is shared, especially when it comes to preserving long-standing customs while adapting them to present-day expectations. What kind of relationship existed between Prince William and Queen Camilla? Could their fractured relationship explain William's act? Let's find out the underlying tensions within the royal household. A quiet royal distance endures. Reports about the relationship between Prince William and Queen Camilla often describe a quiet but steady tension that has followed the modern British royal family for years. It is not seen as open disagreement or public conflict. Instead, it is usually explained as a careful distance shaped by history, emotions, and the weight of past events inside the family. At the center of this complicated story is Prince William's powerful bond with his late mother, Princess Diana. From childhood, he witnessed her joys, her painful public struggles, and eventually the tragedy of losing her far too soon. Those experiences shaped him deeply, and left memories that never truly disappeared. During the years when Diana's marriage to King Charles was falling apart, Queen Camilla became a major topic of public discussion, and many people viewed her role with strong emotions. As a young boy growing up in the middle of that storm, William could not escape those events. Although decades have passed and much has changed, many believe those early memories still quietly influence how he sees and relates to Camilla today. As the years went by, the royal family made clear efforts to rebuild Camilla's public image. Through steady appearances, charitable work, and consistent service, she gradually moved from a controversial figure in public opinion to an accepted senior member of the monarchy. This journey eventually led to her becoming Queen Camilla, a role now formally recognized and supported within the institution. However, even with this progress, many reports suggest that William tends to keep his relationship with her formal rather than emotionally close. In simple terms, it is often described as respectful cooperation without deep personal warmth. They appear together when required, speak politely in public settings, and maintain unity for the sake of the monarchy, but do not show signs of a close personal bond. Some royal observers also link this distance to wider family dynamics, especially during moments of public pressure, media attention, and major changes within the monarchy. As responsibilities have gradually shifted toward William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, differences in personality, generation, and approach to royal duties have become more noticeable. Still, both William and Camilla continue to show a united front in official engagements. Camilla is often described as calm and steady, focusing on her charitable causes and royal responsibilities without engaging in public disagreements. William, on the other hand, is seen as protective of his mother's legacy while also committed to supporting the stability of the monarchy. In the end, their relationship is best understood not as conflict, but as a carefully managed balance. It is shaped by history, duty, personal memory, and the ongoing effort to keep the royal family stable in the eyes of the public. How was Diana's presence perceived in William's act? Could her presence be so deeply rooted in him? Let's talk about the weight of old memories and how the ghost of Diana lingered after decades. The weight William still carries. No conversation about Prince William ever seems to move far without one powerful name coming up again and again: Diana. Even after so many years have passed, the presence of Princess Diana still lingers quietly within the story of the royal family. It feels as though her memory has never fully left the palace. It remains in the background of public life, in the minds of royal watchers, and most deeply, in the hearts of those who knew her as a mother and as a global figure. Millions still remember her interviews, where she spoke with striking honesty. Millions still remember her pain, written clearly on her face during moments when the world watched her life unfold under intense pressure. And millions still remember her unforgettable words that shook the monarchy to its core. There were 3 of us in this marriage. But for William, those moments were never just media events or dramatic headlines. They were not stories he read later in newspapers. They were his reality. They were part of his childhood. Royal writers and commentators have often said that Prince William's understanding of the monarchy was shaped deeply by what he lived through as a young boy. He saw the tension around his parents' marriage. He experienced the public attention, the emotional strain, and the painful impact of constant media focus on his mother's life. These experiences did not simply pass by. They left marks that helped shape how he sees duty, family, and the crown. While King Charles has spent many years trying to secure acceptance for Camilla within royal life, many believe William has been focused on something else entirely. For him, the central concern is not public approval of individuals, but the long-term strength and stability of the monarchy itself. In his eyes, the crown must remain steady, respected, and protected above all else. Those who support William often describe him as calm, careful, and deeply committed to preserving the institution he will one day lead. They see a man who thinks before he acts, who weighs consequences, and who understands responsibility at a very personal level. Others, however, see him differently. They describe him as firm, strict, and sometimes unforgiving in how he handles royal matters. Yet the most interesting question remains unanswered. Is Prince William guided mainly by duty and responsibility? Or is he still, in some quiet way, guided by memory, by everything he saw, felt, and endured as a child? Because memory does not fade easily. It stays. It shapes. It influences even the strongest decisions. And in the middle of all this stands one man, caught between the shadows of the past and the demands of the future, carrying both the weight of legacy and the lessons of loss. What was Charles's reaction to all these? Is the current disposition of the monarchy an indicator of what to expect in the future? Let's take a look at Charles's silence and the rise of a new king. William's quiet monarchy shift. Perhaps the most quietly painful figure in this unfolding royal story is King Charles himself. After spending much of his life protecting and standing by the woman he loves, he now appears caught in a deeply uncomfortable position, torn between two powerful forces pulling in opposite directions. On one side is his wife, Queen Camilla. On the other is his eldest son and heir, Prince William. And in the middle stands a man who carries both duty and emotion, trying to hold the fragile balance of a family and a monarchy at the same time. History has a way of repeating a hard truth. The future does not wait for the present to feel ready. It moves forward, quietly but firmly, whether we are prepared or not. For many years, Charles was known as someone who preferred peace over conflict. He worked behind the scenes, softening disagreements, calming tensions, and trying to keep everyone aligned. His style was careful, patient, and deeply rooted in avoiding public disruption. William, however, seems to be shaped by a different mindset. Those who observe him closely describe a man who is more decisive, more structured, and less concerned with tradition for tradition's sake. He appears more interested in how things function than how they look. Where Charles often sought balance, William seems more willing to redraw the balance entirely. To some, this signals a modern reformer quietly preparing the monarchy for a new century. To others, it feels more personal, like a son slowly correcting what he believes went wrong in the past. The truth may not sit neatly on either side. It may simply reflect what happens when generations shift and leadership styles collide. Because change inside families is never just political. It is emotional, layered, and often painful. Even in royal households, transformation rarely comes without tension, and sometimes without lasting marks. What is becoming increasingly clear, however, is that William is not waiting for the crown to begin shaping the institution. In many ways, he is already acting like someone preparing the ground for his future reign, testing ideas, setting expectations, and quietly influencing direction. This leaves one pressing question hanging in the air. It is no longer about whether change will come to the monarchy. Change is already underway. The real question is how much of the old structure will still exist when William finally becomes king. And when that moment eventually arrives, Britain may look back and realize something striking: that the most significant shift in the royal family did not begin with a grand coronation or a public announcement, but with subtle decisions, quiet strategies, and a single piece of paperwork that most people never even noticed. So, what do you think about the position of Camilla's family in the monarchy? Do you really think Prince William's interest was to protect the monarchy? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.